Welcome to Beers with Brownie. We're an international rugby league YouTube series where we interview some of the international rugby league legends and tell their stories. So if you're new to the channel, for every 100 subscribers, we've been giving away 10 Steedens to developing international rugby league nations. So at the time of filming, we're just short of 1,000 subscribers. And when we reach 1,000 subscribers, we've got 10 Steedens heading over to the Malta Rugby League to assist them with their domestic activity. So if you haven't already, guys, please subscribe to our channel and support the channel. Okay, so I'd like to welcome our guest for this episode. He's the current Uruguay Rugby League national head coach. He's a prominent figure in Brisbane Rugby League circles, and he's also a Manly fan, and that's why we get along so well. Adam Wright, welcome to the episode.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here, Brownie. Thanks for inviting me on. I was really looking forward to this.
Each episode, we like to support a beer that supports rugby league, and Carlton United Breweries have been a long-time sponsor of rugby league, and they've just extended their partnership with the NRL. So we're going to go with one of their much loved and well-known products, Corona. So that's our beer for this episode. So cheers, Righty.
Cheers, mate. Thank you for the beer.
So every episode, I like to wear a piece of merchandise that supports international rugby league or a developing rugby league area. So for this episode, I'm going with the Christmas Island Robbers. So for those that don't know, the Christmas Islands, they're in the Indian Ocean, just below Indonesia. They're part of the Western Australian Rugby League, and it's quite surprising to know, but rugby league is one of the most popular sports on the island. So you wouldn't think it being in Western Australia, but big shout out to everyone at the Christmas Island Robbers and all the very best there, guys. Thank you. So Righty, my first question, how did you come to love rugby league?
I've always, like when I was a kid, my two great loves were the NFL and rugby league. So they kind of went hand in hand sort of with that sort of contact sport sort of thing. Manly always had a lot of Queenslanders, so that made a nice little connection there. And at the time, there were two different comps. Like the Brisbane comp and the Sydney comp were different. And a lot of people told me, like older people told me before the Broncos came into the comp, they supported Manly for similar reasons. So that's how I sort of fell in love with it. Right. And I grew up in a area that was pretty rugby league. Like I grew up not far from West Mitchie, so a lot of people in around our area or at my primary school and that were playing footy, even though I wasn't. But there's a lot of connection with footy, and a lot of guys like Mal Meninga, Wally Lewis, they were like legends of Queensland, and they were like had big names. Everyone had heard of them, everyone knew them. And then when the Broncos came in, Alan Langer became a big name as well, guys like that, and it just really just sort of grew. As their brand grew, it helped rugby league grow, and back then there was no cable TV, so you only saw like one New South Wales game a weekend and things, and one on a Saturday afternoon later on they had that, so that was, but yeah, that's how I fell into it.
So NFL team, Righty?
Denver and the Rams, they're my two sides.
Oh, nice one.
I've been a Denver man. I'm pretty fond of LA. So the Rams, I was glad the Rams won. I had some cash on them, so they delivered for me.
Nice one. Well, just a personal story on the Manly Queensland connection, Righty. So I'm actually from Manly, so Manly were my team as a kid growing up. And as a 6-year-old, I'd watched State of Origin, and our fullback was Dale Shearer at the time. So that's showing my age. And he would play for Queensland, so I supported Queensland. And all my friends were like, "You live in New South Wales, why do you go for Queensland?" So it was the Manly Queensland connection, so I can relate to you there.
Yeah, and the maroon and white, it just seemed nice and simple, like just a nice little pathway.
So Righty, which junior clubs did you play for, and which positions have you played?
Brisbane Brothers. I was as a kid, I was always an outside back, like centre or winger. And then after that, I played a bit of senior footy for Brothers, in like anywhere between the centres to the back row. And as I got a bit older, I just transitioned back into the forwards, stayed there because my game was sort of based around defence. So that became that was another thing, just became a natural. It was never the fastest bloke out wide, so eventually end up in the forwards, and that became my go.
So you played over 400 games in Brisbane Rugby League. Is there a game or is there a moment that stands out to you?
The grand finals are always good. I played in 6, I think, winning 2 or 3. Grand final, it's hard to put into words. Everything you have trained for, it comes to fruition on one day. All the time you spend with these boys, like having beers, hanging out, catching up for meals, doing things, getting to know their family, get your other mates come watch, your guys, like girlfriends and kids and that come watch them.
Yep.
You become that family vibe, and that's something. And that's something that I really relished about rugby league, because as a younger guy, as a kid, I was a bit of a loner, and that camaraderie of a team sport really drew me in as I got older.
So after your playing days are over, what made you want to get into coaching?
For the first, I just thought it was a natural transition. Like, I became assistant coach for a year, and then the opportunity to coach our second side at Mitchie in the seniors. That opportunity came because the guy I was coaching with, he progressed to the top side job, and then I just maintained that for a few years, and then became the top side assistant, and now I'm the ones coach at Mitchie, which I am very honoured and privileged to do.
Fantastic.
Because it's just something I always wanted to do, and just things, and a few other coaching roles along the way have sort of fallen into place.
So I hear on the grapevine that Mitchie is a club that has developed quite a lot of people that are prominent in international rugby league. Can you tell us a few of those people? Oh mate,
we are steeped in rugby league tradition. We are. Rob Bergen, the Latin Heat founder, the founder of Brazilian Rugby League, he's there. He once described it as a battlers club that's almost gone broke a couple of times.
So that's his junior club?
Yep, that's Rob's junior club. Adrian Lamb, former PNG coach, current Australian Test assistant coach.
Now at Lee Centurions.
Yeah, Lee Centurions coach, former Wigan Warriors coach. Sean Berrigan, he played for the Kangaroos and the Maroons.
Yep.
He's a Mitchie junior. We've got Christian Freed. Christian Freed played at 2 League World Cups. He was playing seniors at Mitchie in 2017 when you were the media guy. You were the media manager for their side in 2017.
The World Cup, yeah.
Yep. Christian was a current West Mitchie seniors player then, and still is playing in cameo appearances now.
And Thomas, who set up California Rugby League as well.
I can never forget my good mate Tommy Stevenson. Tommy Stevenson, he played seniors at West Mitchie too, and then the opportunity came up. They needed some players at the Whites playing Wombat, and Tommy left halfway through a season to play. He played a few years over there, and then he transitioned into the off-field stuff where he's done a fantastic job with Cali Rugby League to get them off the ground.
Absolutely.
And considering, and it's no offence to people, but the USA Rugby League RL is a very political situation. Like, they've always having dramas with people in positions of power there. So Cali Rugby League, they basically run their own race. They do their own things, and they have a lot of good stuff going on there. Established quite a few teams, looking to establish women's competition in that, and games like things like that, which is fantastic considering. And I always felt that California is a place big. You know, a lot of Polynesian people living in Cali, a lot of rugby union too, so both games, they're similar but different. They're like siblings with their own different personalities and skill set. So if they can ever manage that where they can play both in different seasons so they're not overlapping and stealing each other's player, I reckon it'd be great for the game.
Absolutely.
And you look at it in the Major League Rugby over there, Will Chambers is playing for the LA Giltinis.
Wow.
Matt Ghetto's father played first grade in the New South Wales Rugby League, Ron, at West and the Roosters. So there's a lot of rugby, there's a lot of league connections around the place.
Yeah, definitely. So Wrighty, going back...
Stephen Fryer, Adam Fryer, his old man, he coached Western Suburbs in Sydney, and he's the CEO there now, the former Randwick and Waratahs. Wow. So another little rugby and league connection.
Yeah, no, definitely. So Wrighty, going back to coaching, in your coaching career to date, has there been a moment that stood out for you? Or is there a favourite moment?
Victories. Every year we have an old boys' day. It's always a big day. Like a lot of ex-players come back, people come back. We have a double header at home, and I was coaching the second side in the threes comp, and we're playing the Sanford Stags, who are on top. In the first half, I lost 2 wingers and a halfback, and we still manufactured a win by 8 points, which the emotional, what do you call it? Like the emotional kick you get out of that, it's hard to put into words for people who don't love sport or don't have passion for things.
Yeah.
But that was up there with. It wasn't a grand final sort of buzz, but it was, for a club game, that was probably as high as you can get. Wins against the odds, like back to the wall, and that's the sort of club we are. Rob described it well. We are a battlers club in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Our facilities aren't top notch, but we've had decent amounts of success in the seniors and in junior ranks, considering the numbers we have and our facilities. West Brisbane Panthers, we feed into them, right. And they're in the higher leagues of BRL A grade and reserve grade, which are the equivalent for the Sydney people. That's like the equivalent of Ron Massey and Sydney Shield. So their top side's one below New South Wales Cup, one below Queensland Cup and New South Wales Cup level. Yep. So they feed in us. So we've got a great relationship with them, which really helps. And there's it's a good pathway for these young guys coming through. They've also got a 20 side for kids who want to aspire to play a little bit higher football.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the thing. Like, we are a battlers club, and as are they. West have got that deep tradition in the western suburbs of Brisbane, and so do West Mitchie. We've got our own traditions, and there's just copious amounts of people who have played at West Mitchie, juniors, over the years. You always run into someone who tells me they played junior football there.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I lived in London for 10 years, and a good mate of mine that I met in London, Brad McCaskill, he actually plays at West Mitchie.
Yes, Brad. I was with Brad last evening having a couple of lemonades. Great finisher. Looks like a librarian, but can score tries.
He's a fantastic guy.
Mad Sharks man too.
And if you're watching, Brad, shout out to you.
Yeah.
So, Wrighty, 2008, Cabramatta Nines, you've been appointed assistant coach of the USA team. So how did that all come about?
Christian Freed looked after me. Danny Howard, USA Tomahawks and Hawks representative, former Parramatta Eels lower grader, and Wentworthville New South Wales Cup and Ron Massey Cup player.
Yeah, Danny was in our 2017
yep.
World Cup squad, yeah.
Yeah, and so they just needed some help. I said I'd love to help. Christian organised it, so I flew down and helped the boys out. We lost in the quarters. It was a good competition at Cabra Nines.
Yeah, definitely.
And Uruguay are looking to play in the upgraded version of it in October, called the Sydney Nines. It won't be. I don't know if it will. I don't think it will be at Cabramatta. Taz Batiri, the godfather of all international rugby league,
yep.
He's one of the main organisers. So they're looking to get that off after the club scene in October. And there'll be a few New South Wales rugby league club teams competing as well. So we're looking to compete in that. But yeah, the USA thing, it was quite an experience. There was a lot of good players in that side.
Yeah.
Like Mark Offerdale.
Yep.
The Howie brothers had a couple of fill-in players, like Eli Roberts. He's playing for Glebe now and is dual registered with the North Sydney Bears.
Yep.
He actually played a couple of trials for the Roosters earlier this year.
Right.
So there were plenty of talented lads, and we lost to the home side, who went on to make the final. The Cabramatta Two Blues there.
So a year after, moving forward to 2019, you get appointed head coach of the Uruguay team. So how did that all come about?
At the time, Angel Morrison was one of their players. and he was playing in the side I was coaching at Mitchie in the seniors. They had a game in Brisbane, and their coach couldn't make it for some reason. And then they contacted me on a Tuesday. We had no training. Most of the players didn't arrive till Friday or Saturday.
Right.
I didn't meet half of them till then. I went and met the now president of Uruguay Rugby League, Adam Kungal, who was still playing, who still played a bit then.
Yep.
I met up with him at a pub at Rockley somewhere, because he was staying near the ground. It just sort of fell into place from there. We ended up losing, I think, it was like 18 points, so like it was like 40 to 22 or 40 to 20, something like that.
Who was that against?
Colombia. And because it was a friendly, it was like the qualification restrictions they had basically a whole Aussie side.
Right.
So, but because it's not an actual international, you don't have to stick to the qualification thing. Where with Uruguay, we could do that at the nines, but we try not to. We try to be as true to the brand as possible.
No, fair enough. So, Wrighty, for those that don't know, can you give our viewers a bit of a background on Uruguay Rugby League, how it came about and how it's all going?
Well, Uruguay, it's been in existence probably 7 years now. 7 years, I think. We haven't won a 13-a-side game. They've competed in nines tournaments, like Tino nines tournaments, I should say, and have had some victories there. Different people have come and go. But the committee's done a fantastic job. People have slowly moved on, but men like Adam Kungal and the likes, they've done fantastic jobs in just keeping it afloat.
Yeah.
With COVID, things have been a bit up and down. We've had a couple of false starts where we've tried to organise games, and with getting everything synced in between the New South Wales Rugby League and the Queensland Rugby League and things like that, and the restrictions with borders, all those sort of things. Last game we played was against Brazil, and unfortunately we lost that one, a big score, but finding a date when everyone is physically available has been hard for us. That's why when we play in October in Sydney at the Sydney International Nines, that's got to be a stepping stone, because I really want to get our brand out there, because we've got to start playing against non-Latino teams, I think, just so it spreads the word. So people are spreading us on Facebook, on social media, all those sort of things. We've just got to grow our brand, and that therefore attracts Uruguay eligible players to want to play. We're looking to get to establish ourselves on the ground in Uruguay too, because that's to obtain observer status, you need to have an office in the home nation and start having people like even running some coaching clinics and things like that. There's a big rugby presence in Uruguay, and they've been to Rugby Union World Cups. So we've got to start tapping into some of those type of players to use them and start getting them to come and want to play league. It's the same in Australia. We have to reach out to some of these Uruguayan rugby players to start building our talent pool.
So, Righty, besides the nines that are coming up, I've seen the emergence of a number of heritage teams like your Macedonias, Vietnam, Malta, etc. So a lot of heritage teams. Is there anything in the pipeline to play any more internationals against these teams?
Well, we're hoping to reach out to the Moon Bears, the Aussie-based Japanese side, hopefully play them, or maybe one of the Asiana nations in October. For our development, nines and another 13-a-side game is pretty important. We've got to get back out there. We've got to get back on the horse, as they say. We've got to start establishing ourselves a bit. Like we have you boys selling our merch, like with the hats and so forth. And I saw there was a guy at the Giltinis game in LA wearing a Uruguay hat. Little things like that. It's just a way to get your brand out there. You've got to get people noticing you. We have a Facebook page and an Insta page. So anyone watching this potty, like the Uruguay Rugby League Facebook page or Instagram page, just start getting it out there. If you see anything we post, if you could share it, that'd be fantastic. Development is crucial. Just you've got to start building things, but the problem is different nations, or different cultures I should say, they have different ways to do anything. Like the USA, with them, they've got to establish it at an adult level before establishing it in a junior development level, because if you start developing these kids, they want to see it done at a high level, like the USA playing, like the USA Hawks / Tomahawks playing internationals, and that hasn't been able to happen for a few years with COVID. Things like that North American Rugby League competition, like that was all, that was all talked up. Then they meant to do an abbreviated format. Now the latest rumours are that it's all fallen over. Those things can happen. You have to find some way to get your brand out there, but in doing that, you have to get people's attention, and you have to get people interested in you. So the way to do that is play games.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And you play, even playing in a nines tournament, you have 4 games in a day or more, and people, Uruguay got a team. I didn't know that. People hear that. You start plugging on social media. All of a sudden, people want to put their hand up to play. There's a couple of guys in Queensland that are available. James Siga, he's a winger for the Normby Hounds in the under-20s competition. So you've got guys like that running around. Johnny Mazzio, who's my captain, he's been great. He made his debut probably 2018. Like all those sort of guys, they're playing club football out of Cronulla. Him and another one of the Uruguay lads, Carlos, they're playing out there. So we've got to if some guys could play some club footy, that'd be fantastic. The hard part is we've got some guys that aren't playing any week-to-week footy. And they don't plan to.
You need to get them into clubs, don't we?
Yeah, and if you could do that, it's just hard to go from doing a bit of training once a month with Uruguay to actually going into like playing a game against guys that are like in football condition.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you've got better skills or not. They're going to wear you down.
No, definitely. And just touching on what you said, Righty, about building that awareness. That was one of the reasons why Chasing Roos is what it is in terms of selling international rugby league merch. Like to give you an example, I wore a Brazil rugby league training top to the gym a couple months back, and I got some people coming up to me going, "Oh, I didn't even know there was rugby league in Brazil," and I'm like, "Well, now you do." And it's all about building that awareness, and and it goes from there. So, Righty. Going back to Uruguay Rugby League, what's the relationship like with the Latin Heat, and what's the relationship like with International Rugby League?
With the IRL, we don't hear from them that often because, unfortunately, we've not been that active on the scene, and that's unfortunate. That's probably due to both parties, and with the COVID situation, all Latin Heat we have a good relationship with. There's a Latina Origin coming up in Noosa. I think it's next weekend. So there'll be some good players on display there. It would have been good. Some of the Uruguay boys probably would have put their hand up to play for New South Wales, but unfortunately the timing of it and whatnot. With the IRL, we have to start strengthening relationships with organisations like that. But for us to do that, we have to establish ourselves, like Adam Kungl and I have spoke about this several times, about establishing ourselves on the ground in Uruguay. So that gives a foot in the door, so it looks like we're trying to progress in getting things happening. There are people who don't know they played rugby league in the United States. There are people who don't know, like they played rugby union in the United States and don't know who the Giltinis are or anyone like that.
Yep.
But this is why you have to establish yourself, and social media is obviously the greatest platform. When people go on social media and they've got pictures of themselves in your hats or wearing a jersey, we're getting some more jerseys put out. Just shout out to Andrew Peace Wines. They've been great sponsors for us. Ferny Grove Bears, Old Boys. That's an old club we used to play for that no longer fields a team, but the Old Boys, they do raffles and so forth at the Ferny Grove Tavern out in the northwest suburbs of Brisbane, and they sponsor a lot of junior and senior sport in our side of town. So thanks to Kelvin Daly, Mark Morrison, and Matty and all the boys involved with that for the money to pump into us. Thanks to Dave Wheel at Andrew Peace Wines for everything he's got going on. We're looking to tee up a couple more sponsors. Bull Maintenance, looking to get on board with that, with Brad Perkins at Bull Maintenance. He wants to get on board, so we want to do that, get some new jerseys put out. We want to try and get them with you boys, like, you know, selling a few of them, see how they go. Just keep spreading our brand. We just got to keep growing. People, a lot of negative people out there. People tell you negative stuff all the time. You're wasting your time. Rob Bergen teed up a first Latin Heat game ever. I called the game on a live stream. They lost 114-0. And then and there you would have thought, some people thought, no, this will never work. And now look at Brazil women are going to a World Cup. Things like that, like perseverance. You've got to stick down. You've got to get people, like-minded people on board. People are always going to have differing opinions. But one thing too, I always know, like, you've got to always be aware of when it's time to step away. I am under no illusions that they're going to need me forever. Eventually, they may find another Uruguayan heritage, an actual Uruguayan heritage coach. If that's the case, and they need me to move on or move into a different role as an advisory role, I can do that. Whatever's best for the growth of the Gauchos. And you have to be prepared to do that. And you have to be prepared to, if something you're trying is not working, that's what problem people have in life, in any forms of life. You've got to be prepared to step back. And as a coach, I've learnt that over the years, that your plan, your shape, whatever your structure, what you want to do is not working. You've got to be prepared, and people come to you, you've got to be prepared to tinker with it and not take it as a slur on you. Ego's got to be put aside in this. We're looking to grow the game. Rugby league's a fantastic product, and it's an easy game to adapt. We're not trying to take over anything, but we can get footholds. People used to say the Storm in Melbourne was a waste of time.
No, definitely.
Success got them in. They had good administrators. Success. And then they paid everyone a couple of $1 million over the salary cap for a while, and then that helped too. Just joking to the Storm people. My daughter's a Storm supporter. But success down there. Now they have, and they're not by any means trying to muscle in on AFL territory, but there is junior rugby league in Victoria now, and competitions in seniors and juniors. Those sort of things too. Tommy Stevenson said in an article recently that he feels that because the NRL looking to take a game to LA.
Yep.
Which would be fantastic. But he feels that such a big market in LA and so many sporting teams there that maybe they should try and don't be afraid to be the big fish in a small pond. Go to somewhere like Salt Lake City or something with and there's a lot of island, a big island population with a big Mormon population. A lot of people of the Mormon faith. A lot of people there play rugby and things like that, and have a rugby connection from their childhood and that. So you might be able to grab some of those people to play. Yeah. So that's how I look at it with Uruguay. When they don't need me, I'm okay with that. And the same thing will come as a footy coach. That's going to happen. I'm going to get tapped on the shoulder one day at Mitchie, and I've given them the last 10 years of my life. But you've got to be prepared for those things. You might say beat it, but you might have to. It might be better for you to go sideways, and me being a coaching advisor and things like that.
Yeah, no, sure.
And I'll do that if they ever need that, if they ever find a Uruguayan. But until they don't need me, I'm always going to be available.
Alrighty, just when you're talking about the naysayers and you're wasting your time. Obviously, Rome wasn't built in a day. It does take time, yes. And the great Paul Kelly, the Australian musician, he said, "From little things, big things grow." When I started OzTag in London back in 2009, people said it will never work here. This is a football, like a soccer city. No one will play OzTag. It's like rugby league, and then it became the biggest social sport in London. And so and the Rob Bergen example with and all the hard-working people at Brazil Rugby League. It's a football country, but like you say, they're going to the World Cup. So it just takes time and it takes persistence, and you can get there in the end. So, righty, going on to my next question. So, Uruguay has a long history in rugby union.
Yes.
Do you think rugby league can become a success in Uruguay, with all these athletes that can cross over?
I think it can, because rugby union pool would be big. You've just got to tap into some of that. And I've used this sort of a model I would use in the US. After they've established at the top, they need to try and get into like some high schools and things like that, and play even 9-a-side rugby league, be it in Uruguay, be it in the US, because it's easier to form a tournament at a 9-a-side, like form 9-a-side team. You can build that, so when these guys choose to stop playing, either like in the US, like playing American football in after high school or after college, they've already had some experience playing the game, so they may want to play on a little bit more of a social level in a local club competition. Uruguay the same, and if you have to, it's a bit different there because you have to get in there and promote the game more, like at a grassroots level over there. Because if they're used to throwing a rugby ball around, they've got many translatable skills. Because like you said, like I described before, we're like siblings, union and league. So you can catch, you can pass, like the basic premise of scoring a try. Fair enough, ruck and maul's different. The 10 metres different. The catch, the kick, the basic premise of defence, those sort of things, like the line running, it's all very similar. You can translate these skills into that. So like, we need these athletes that are contact sport athletes and power athletes, like explosive speed or strength and that. And it's the same in the US. You want to tap into a place like Texas. If you're playing 9-a-side rugby league tournament in some of those schools in Texas or somewhere like that, that puts the thought in these kids' minds. Because they have like touch footy competitions in places like Texas. You're saying about like Oztag growing, touch footy, a mate of mine, he's a Brizzy boy. He's lived in London since the mid-2000s. He coached England like over 35 and 40s touch to World Cup tournaments and things like that. So
yeah,
things can get, you're not trying to take over, but you can take a little piece for yourself. Of course, like with Uruguay too, and soccer's obviously enormous. Rugby's got a good foothold, but not every kid will play those sports. If you put a sport in front of someone and they start playing it in their primary school or something like that, they will grow. That will grow. And like kids throwing a ball around the park, people go down and kick the football. They'll go down and pass. They'll want to play. Yeah. And that's what we need to do. You've got to work out what is the best strategic approach in your market. The US have to do it from the top down. Other countries like Uruguay have to do it from the bottom up. And those kids that might play rugby and rugby league, do that in all those sorts of countries. You've just got to tap into that. It's just getting people on board, and it's a slow process and it could take a while, but you've got to chip away. If you've got athletes that are big, strong and fast and they're not doing anything and they don't mind contact, we're all looking for the same sort of athlete. Explosive power, good on your feet, and strong. Basically strong.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, Righty, you got a extensive background in rugby league. You got a good footy brain. So, I just want to get your thoughts on, we've got the upcoming Rugby League World Cup. So it's fantastic for international rugby league fans like myself. Who's going to surprise us at the World Cup this year?
Jamaica will be all right. Depends. The groups have changed. They were in a good group before the cancellation of it last year. If they can win a couple of games, because there's a lot of those Jamaican heritage blokes like Dom Young and that from the Knights and that are on either fringe Super League or champions and the championship and things like that. They can tap into a few there. See, they're a perfect example. They're at the peak of their existence now that they've qualified. You have to tap into this market. You know what I mean? Like US 2013. And that was one thing with the USA. They went massive downhill from then, like with the development. You've got to tap in. It's like your 15 minutes of fame. You've got to be getting on board. And Jamaica play games against the US, like like the local lads and so forth. You've got to keep doing that. So people know you're playing, or you can buy a Jamaican jersey. Like this World Cup, everyone will want to grow up. Like, you know, like you see, like after 2013, you used to see kids walking around the streets in Mitchelton wanting to be Christian Freed. No, they didn't. I'm just making that up because I know them well. But you want people to want to be you. Like, but things like that, like people like, these sort of minnow teams, they have cult heroes. There'll be some big strong bloke who doesn't look like he can play footy and he can offload the ball, or he puts big hits on, or he scores a few tries from 2 metres out. Everyone's going, how good is that guy? You form those love affairs with guys like that. Like there was this guy in the cricket World Cup once. There was a guy playing for South Australia, and he qualified for the Netherlands, and he was like a big Tonka fast bowler, and he got a man of the match and won a gold watch. And Viv Richards goes to him, like hit like 70 off about 20 balls, and Viv Richards going and said, man, that was awesome. Those little things. World Cups have these romantic stories, like when Japan made it in the Union one a few years ago.
Yeah.
So England are going to be good. New Zealand's going to be interesting because we don't know how New Zealand are. Like, I think they lack in the halves. Tonga, like I ran into a mate, Jack Muir, last night, and he said, and he coached Hong Kong Rugby League, and he feels that Tonga could win it. They lack in the halves. Like, Australia are going to have to be the big dogs, because you look at a squad you take, Daly Cherry Evans could be going as the backup halfback. You know, things like that. So you've got plenty of depth.
Yeah, absolutely.
One side's like, I think Jamaica will be better than a lot of people think. Italy should be better because they've got a lot of guys like fringe NRL guys, or they've got like a lot of second tier guys like in Australia. That Lebanon, if they get the full side, but they have a lot of feuding going on. Like, you've got plenty of Lebanese heritage guys like Alex Twal. Abus Miski's playing at, he's played NRL, he's playing at Wigan at the moment.
Yep.
So guys like that, you're not going to have your Mitch Moses and things like that. So I'd like to see those sort of sides do well. I'm disappointed USA aren't in there, but who knows what sort of state of side they would be fielding, like if they had qualified with everything that's going on. But so I'm thinking Jamaica will be better than a lot of people give them credit for.
Yep.
Italy should be all right, but I really don't know. But you're going to have those strong sides that are really going to do well. England under Sean Wayne will be a different beast. Sean Wayne can coach, and he'll put his own blueprint on a few things. As you said, you saw a guy who works for Sean Wayne last night at Magic Round. So they're out there. So they've got a lot of form English players running around in the NRL at the moment.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think Samoa and Fiji will also put on good performances. But yeah, no, it's going to be
Samoa, that's disappointing with them. They have all the talent in the world and they'll have good players. I hope they don't underachieve just for the sake of the game. Like, Fiji always capture the imagination of side. They've been to a couple of World Cup semis. People love that. The way they play their footy, there's plenty of Fijian heritage players running around. The Silktails are running around in the Ron Massey. PNG are always going to be a powerful side, and they'll probably have the Boas brothers in the halves then. Maybe Lockie Lamb as well.
Yep.
So those sort of things, like a few more guys like with Olam and the likes there. There's a few guys running around in the Q Cup, and the Hunters are there.
Yep.
They'll be up there. But so I think England are going to be strong again. New Zealand, I don't know how they're going to be. Like, they're going to have the talent, but we're going to have to see. Like Maguire's got a big task on his hand there, and Samoa, you know what I mean? Like, with their current coaching staff, they need, I don't know, they don't seem to be getting the results that they can. But you've got another chance. We've got some internationals coming up, mid-year internationals here in Australia.
Looking forward to that. Tonga, New Zealand, and Fiji, Papua New Guinea.
They're both at Campbelltown, aren't they?
Samoa, Cook Islands, Fiji, Papua New Guinea's Campbelltown.
Yep.
Tonga, New Zealand's over in Auckland.
Yep,
So
to draw the big crowd, things like that. That'll be a good test for both of those sides. We'll get a bit of an idea of what we're looking at, because they're in a purple patch with the blokes available, Tonga at the moment, and they need to really convince blokes to want to jump on and be a part of that, be a part of it. Cook Islands always have a good squad. It'll be interesting how they are.
Yep. Well, Righty, last question. If you're the boss of the NRL, where do you put the 18th franchise?
Tough question. Once I would have said Perth, because I thought we need to expand this to a national game, and we could tap in like more sponsorship, like with the mining money, and they've got to be a chance. Perth. Everyone brings up North Sydney, all the old North Sydney diehards bringing up Dave Wheel, one of our great sponsors, Andrew Peace Wine. Everyone wants the Bears to come back, but I can't see that happening. Like people said, like South East Queensland now are oversaturated with the Dolphins coming in, but that adds to the rivalry. This is hard. This is real hard.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it?
I was thinking that. See, there's merits with another New Zealand team. Some people, saying Central Queensland. I don't really think Central Queensland. You could argue if the Bears came back and they had that North Sydney Central Coast corridor, but you've got to be bringing something. They're strong rugby league areas. That's where I used to think Perth would have been a go. When the cable TV times were like they could have had a 9:30 time slot, which is a replay game. They could have had a live game, so they could have gone 3 live games in. See, you can always argue with that. There, you could have 4 games on a Saturday, some weekends.
Yeah.
And things like, that stumped me. I've got no idea where to put the next franchise.
It's a tough one, but Righty, I'd like to wish you all the very best with Uruguay Rugby League. I look forward to seeing them in action in the future, and I really appreciate you coming on the show today, and thanks for your time.
Thanks, mate. Just anybody who's watched, if you give my club side, the West Mitchelton Panthers, a like on our Facebook page, or follow me personally, Adam Wright. It's a picture of myself and my daughter on there. I always post a lot of videos about Mitchie and International Rugby League stuff. So if you could give me a follow. Always love to have a chat about the game and my thoughts on how we could make it better, or I'd like to hear other people's thoughts on how we could improve things in rugby league. Throw me some, if you think there's something through sponsorship or some other ideas you think might help us with Uruguay Rugby League, I'd love to hear that too. And it's been a pleasure coming on, Brownie. You got a great show here. The people love it. You get all the big guests. None of them were available today, so I got to start. So I was pretty thankful for that. So,
you're always welcome, Righty.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much for having me on. It's been great.
Cheers.